All right, so this may be an unpopular opinion that I'm about to bring up here, but the concept of Christmas is kind of like really messed up. And from an outside perspective, just looking at it, everything seems totally normal. But I think that's kind of mental conditioning and the way that we kind of look at it. And we've grown up with it and it's been normalized in our culture and it's like a worldwide thing. So it's seen as normal, but I don't think it should be. It's really just quite a dichotomy because I don't know, it's kind of insane. And I'll get into it, but like the fact that like everyone's so like it's all about love and Christmas spirit and being merry and happy during Christmas. And I feel like the backbone of what Christmas is like really just kind of not that. But we'll get into it. So, you know, it is at its core a sacrificial practice that we dress in shiny material crap, right? So, Christmas trees, right? So, Christmas is messed up, but Christmas trees especially are messed up, in my opinion, right? Because at its core, it is a sacrificial practice that we dress up in shiny material crap. It's all garbage, right? Realistically, every ornament you have is garbage. Like, I'm sorry, like there's sentimental value, but it's trash. But beyond its sentimental value, it's trash. I'm sorry. Anyway, so anyway, so you go out into the woods, right? Or at least at one point you did do that. A lot of people now have fake trees, which I'll get into that. I think that that's also very interesting. But you used to go out into the woods, right? And then you would chop down a tree, and then that would kill it. And then you would bring it back to your house, put it up in your place on an altar, basically, and then you would dress it up in shiny crap, right? And then gather around it and put your presents of crap, your presents of crap and garbage all around this, sacrifice, and then celebrate. And, I just think that that's really messed up. And I know that it's just a tree, so who cares? But no, it's a sacrificial practice. It's very interesting to me and it's really messed up. And my family gets a live tree. So, like, I still have a live tree in my family, and I think that it's very pretty. Christmas trees are very pretty. But this is 100% a sacrificial practice. It is. And we just don't see it like that because it's a tree, but trees are alive. Anyway, so, it's basically an abhorrent middle finger to the world and nature, and it is so rooted in the subconscious, right? Because like I said, Christmas trees are pretty and it's such an ingrained part of our culture and it's so subconscious. We don't look at a tree and be like, oh, every year we kill a tree and put it in our house, right? We don't see it like that. That's not what we see when we see a Christmas tree. We see happiness, we see joy, we see Christmas spirit, right? And it's really death and like a slow torturous death at that. Because the thing is not only do you kill it, but then you try and make it last as long as possible and live as long as possible in your house, right? But the reality is that it will never live. It's going to die. So it's just a slow, torturous death. And we don't see it as that because we don't see trees as having feelings. We don't see them as alive. A lot of people don't really look at a tree and go, that's an alive, living thing. They just see a tree, right? And so it's just it just shows the level of disconnection from nature and the world. And, it's just such a deeply rooted part of our subconscious now. Like, we don't even realize how messed up this is. And I didn't realize how messed up this was until I was like thinking about it relatively recently, right? Like, this was a random thought I had while I was driving to work. Because I was thinking about, my mom had actually mentioned like like what happens like in the winter, like all the trees don't have leaves, so like are they not producing oxygen? And I know like anyone that gives my mom hate here, like this is a very valid question actually, because it's like yeah, there's no leaves. Like that is kind of interesting, like for a portion of the year, like a big part of the planet doesn't have trees growing. But the thing is that one, like that's just a part of the earth, not the whole earth. So I think it's good to kind of think about this, because it's like, yes, for you there's no leaves on the trees, but that's not the true nature of, like that's not what's going on everywhere in the world. So it kind of helps you realize that like what's happening to you is not the same as everything everywhere. Like you are not living in the entire world, right? There's stuff going on outside of you, right? So there's trees outside of you that are alive, that are growing, that are producing, oxygen for us to breathe. And then on top of that, I was like, well, there also are plants that grow through the winter. Like it's not that everything stops growing and loses its leaves. There are evergreens, right? And there are other like grasses and shrubs that, don't completely lose their leaves and stop growing or anything when the winter comes, right? There's probably less growth, and there's not as many plants, of course, but there's not absolutely nothing, right? And again, there's the evergreen trees that, through the winter are green and are, vibing out. So it's not really a big issue. But when we had that, I think having that context helped to spark this as well, because I was thinking about that, in the back of my head somewhere, right? So I made that connection. Again, I had to talk about, making connections to other things, helps you to kind of piece things together and build a network that, leads to other realizations here. And this is kind of one of those for me, from my perspective, right? And maybe you'll say, Sam, you're absolutely insane. But I personally, like, if I'm insane, then I don't want to be sane. Is how I feel. So, like with something like this, like there's just certain things where it's like, if I'm wrong, I don't want to be right. I don't know. So anyway, anyway, so where was I? There are trees, like I had that conversation, and so I was driving in my car and I was thinking about a way to kind of bring like talk about like, oh, all the trees are dead, like must have been like so beautiful when the trees, like I was thinking of like a skit idea, because I was looking at these trees and thinking about it, and I was kind of creating like a dialogue script for a video in my head, and I am going to make it. It's not exactly how I pictured it when I started recording it, because I did film it. I kind of like everything kind of shifted because I had to make it work with the limited time frame. I like filmed it during my lunch break at work, and I thought initially I was like, oh, I gotta drive to another location, and then I went, and it was such a gorgeous day today. I did it today. It was such a nice sunny day. I was like, it has to be today. It has to be. So I just like walked across the street. There was some woods, and I recorded it there. But moving on, that is going to tie in. So like this will kind of get the perspective. Like watching that may help with this, maybe. Probably not. I'll probably explain everything here. But I was thinking about making that video, and then while I was making that, I started thinking about how like evergreen trees grow throughout the winter. And then I kind of thought about how that relates to, the trees are all sleeping, and then I kind of thought about like, well, all the people are kind of sleeping, and then there are some people that are awake, right? And they are, always, there, kind of, even when it's cold, right? So, they never go to sleep. And there may be like they go a little more dormant or something. I don't really know the mechanics of trees, right? Not super well, right? But the reality is that they stay green throughout the winter, right? And not every tree does that. So that's what I'm trying to get to here, right? And so I thought this was interesting, and I kind of related that to people then, and then I thought about, well, if that's true, right? If normal trees are the average person, and then the spiritually awake people are the evergreen trees, then that means that at Christmas time we are killing evergreen trees and putting them in our houses, which is, kind of like saying, we're killing people that are spiritually awake and trying to, wake up the rest of the people. We're killing them and sacrificing them and kind of putting them in our houses. Looking at it from that perspective, that's really messed up. That's kind of really diabolical in a sense, right? And then I thought about at Christmas, the evergreen tree is kind of supposed to represent Christ because it's supposed to represent everlasting life, and we are killing everlasting life to put it in our house. So I thought that was also very interesting because it's supposed to represent like everlasting life and Jesus in a sense. I'm pretty sure that's that's supposed to kind of be a part of it, right? And we are killing it. We're killing everlasting life and potentially killing a symbol of Jesus, right? Or a symbology of like Jesus Christ, right? We're killing it, and then we're putting it in our house, and we're dressing it up in material crap, right? And putting material things around it and celebrating a holiday of materialness and consumerism. And that is literally the exact opposite of what Jesus taught, which was do not value like physical possessions and, like just, I don't know, be a good person. But like, like it was to avoid the immaterial, right? And somehow Christmas has turned into, instead of being a time of, I mean, like, I don't even know if at any point it was really like a good representation of what, Jesus wanted, right? Because, basically the whole point of Jesus's teachings was to be not worry about the material world and focus on, like God and heaven and things like that. And so you're supposed to be like, I don't need a lot of money here because I will be given blessings in heaven, right? And all these things. And so here we are celebrating his birth by giving each other a bunch of material things, right? And maybe at one point it was from a point of love and it was like, here's a little gift for you. But at this point now it is purely buy. It is like, at this point, if you don't get someone a gift for Christmas, it's like, why? Where's my gift? I get gifts at Christmas. That's how this works. You only gave me 5 gifts this year? I guess you don't love me as much this year, right? It is not about the love. It's about the things. It's about the things. I only got 5 gifts and they got 7. That's not fair. That's not fair. Where are my things? I deserve things, right? And so Christmas is no longer, if it ever was, a good representation of what Jesus was believing in. But so continuing on, it has become so materialistic that it's consumed itself in a sense, as the trees aren't even real now, but the symbolism is still there, right? Even though it's not a real tree and most people don't have real trees, the symbolism is still there. It's sort of like killing and sacrificing someone to your God in a video game. It has a little backing, but the same principles apply. Like that was your idea behind it, so it has some meaning, but like it's not a real thing. So it's like, who, like it's kind of ridiculous, but like it's kind of silly, in a way. Like nowadays, that every holiday, it's kind of silly that every holiday is basically, buy money. And like buy money is spend money basically and like buy things, but that's like pretty much most holidays. Like if you like every holiday is basically buy and get drunk, like with a little bit of flavor to it, right? You know, like, hold on, I gotta change the battery. All right, so every holiday is buy, and get drunk, basically, right? So, everything is just like consumerism and stuff, right? We just had Thanksgiving. It's just eat a ton of food, and then immediately after you eat a ton of food, guess what? It's go out and shop for Black Friday, right? So you gotta go get those deals, right? So who cares about spending time with the family, right? Let's go get those deals, right? And then. Christmas again is buy. You're buying those things for Christmas, right? And also, it's typically tons of food and stuff. And everyone says oh, also this thing about the night before Thanksgiving is apparently a really big partying night. I don't know. I've never taken part in it, but apparently it's really big going out to like the bars and stuff. A ton of people go out the night before and get drunk, right? So there it is there. And then on Christmas. I imagine people on Christmas also get pretty drunk, but that's not as much. It's more about buying and all that stuff on that day and all the gifts. And then New Year's Eve, get really drunk. St. Patrick's Day, get really drunk. July 4th, get really drunk. We'll say Valentine's Day, well, you buy gifts and you buy, chocolates and flowers, and you probably go out for an expensive meal and potentially also get drunk if you're single. So, get drunk. And then, I don't know, what other holidays are there? I don't know. But basically, any holiday is just an excuse to get drunk at this point, which is very embarrassing and very telling of our society at this point, I think. Pretty much any occasion, if there's a get together, people are basically like, okay, like, what are we doing? Like, let's get drunk, right? An example of this is at my work. Like, I'm trying, like, I proposed going bowling, right? And they were like, bowling? I hate bowling. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. It was quite a reaction. Like, they were not interested at all. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess, we could do I wanted to do something other than just go out and drink. But we basically ended back up at, the only thing anyone's willing to go do is go out to happy hour and get some drinks, which, I don't know, boring, just boring. Anyway, I got kind of on a rant there, but I do think it's important just to realize that it's actually insane. And so, it's basically get drunk and buy stuff, hail the money is pretty much like if you needed a motto for every holiday, it would basically be that. And so what makes this even worse is that you can see evergreen trees as trees that remain awake through the winter while the majority are sleeping, and can relate that to people who are spiritually awake through times when the collective are sleeping. This is a must, as without trees in the winter, it would impact the planet tremendously. That's a side tangent, though. I am going to make a skip. I already did that, blah, 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 blah. But while I was doing that, I realized what's wrong with Christmas. Getting back to that, the Christmas trees are evergreen, and that represents eternal life, which represents Jesus, who is also someone who could be seen as awake while the collective was asleep, right? So I would argue that Jesus was a spiritually awake person, right? And could be seen as one of these evergreen trees, right? And because this relation could be made, right? every year on his birthday, we kill, sacrifice, deface, and then celebrate around the symbology of him, his beliefs, and people like him in the world, right? So it's not just we're doing that for him, but we're also doing that for anyone that dares to be like him, right? And so, we do this with the very antithesis of his teachings, materialism, right? So every time, we celebrate Christmas, we are basically saying, like, on a subconscious level, not intentionally, but on a subconscious level, we are saying, screw you, Earth, screw you, God, we love money. And after seeing it from that perspective, I really can't see it any other way. And for a while, I've been feeling like holidays just don't have any value to them anymore. Like, they don't feel that special or that magical. And I feel like a part of that is because I grew up and I kind of like, it's no longer that special to get gifts, because if I want something, I just can buy it because I have money now. Whereas when I was a kid, I didn't really have money to do that, right? And there's a lot of things where, it's just kind of another day. And I've never really been big on partying and going out drinking and stuff. So a lot of other holidays, like, that's literally all they are. So it's like, why do I care about this? Oh, Halloween. I forgot about Halloween. Halloween, also go out, party, and get drunk and buy lots of candy to give to kids, which is just a very interesting holiday in itself. But anyway, so, we do this and we say, basically, screw you. Money is our God, not you. Even like on his birthday, like, oh my gosh, messed up, cold blooded. So it's like, it's pretty darn messed up, and it is a celebration of being deceived and unaware of, like, it's just like, basically it's celebrating, it's saying screw you, and we are rejoicing in our deception, and we are rejoicing in, being unaware. Each year we thank the money for keeping us, like, confused and, deluded, for another year. And, it's, a promotion of killing and a warning to anyone who dares to awaken or be awake in this world, right? So, it's almost like, when you kill, like, if you were, I don't know, trying to scare people off, right? Any trespassers, you kill them, right? And then you put their head on a pike. And it's basically saying, this will be you if you trespass on my land, right? You put their head on a spike and say, this will be you, right? And that is basically, like, on a subconscious level, right? That is what Christmas is. Everyone puts a head on a spike in their house and, celebrates around it and says thank you to money, basically, and screw you to God, and screw you to the earth, and says anyone who awakens or dares to awaken, or is awake or tries to awaken me, this will be you, right? And I know that sounds deranged and I sound like I'm unhinged right now, but I really don't think it is. Maybe I'm looking way too hard into this, but I really don't think I am. And, I just think, like, after I had that experience, like, I was just like, what the heck? What? And so I had to say something about it. So there's there's that. So yeah, do with that what you will. I'm not gonna stop celebrating Christmas, I guess, because I stopped eating meat, but that doesn't mean that because I don't agree with it, right? But I think what my goal is now is to stop buying my family gifts, and start just making them gifts. That's what I'm gonna go with now, because then it'll be a celebration of creation and such, and instead of a celebration of materialism, right? Um, and so, not that I have a lot of people that would have experienced this, or not that there are a lot of people that, even watch this channel that even know who I am really in person. But, um, you know, for me, like, if I care about you, one of the best ways I can show that is to make you something, right? So I had a girlfriend, and I'd to my understanding, like from my perspective, I gave her a bunch of gifts. Not that I'm like, oh, I gave you all these gifts, now give me something. But like that was kind of like how I showed, like, hey, I care about you. I made this and I spent my time making this for you, right? And to me, that means something, right? But to other people, they just go like, what is this garbage that you've made me? So like no one gets that, right? But it is what it is. That doesn't mean I'm gonna stop doing that. But like I like to make stuff, and if I can make something and also give it to you, then I'm gonna do that. So, I on multiple occasions I did that, but I never really got like that reciprocation. And after a while, I started being like, well, what am I doing this for? Like, I'm not, like, this doesn't feel right, right? And so, sorry if you're watching, but that's basically what happened, right? So, you know, I don't know why I mentioned that. I think I mentioned it because, I just wanted to kind of show that, like, I like to give gifts of things I've made, and so I'm going to pursue that further now because I think that is better than buying stuff. And things that I found is that a lot of some of the things that I buy for people as like a Christmas gift, they never use and they didn't want, right? Or maybe they said they wanted it, but they didn't really need it. I think maybe like 2 or 3 years in a row now, the gifts that I've bought for my sister, she has either barely used it or like not used it. Like I bought a longboard, never rode it. I bought her a punching bag. She's like, I need a punching bag, and never uses it. I'm like, okay, well, like, what's the point of buying you stuff? You don't use any of the things you say you want. So like, what am I even doing here? So anyway, side tangent. Yeah, okay, we're still on this talk. Wow. All right. Yeah, anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I feel like I've gotten really rambly here. I've kind of lost track of the plot, so I'm going to end it. But Christmas is messed up. Every other holiday is kind of trash anyway, so maybe we should work on that. And yeah, I don't know. Peace out.